The content presented in this podcast and YouTube show is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the guidance of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your health or a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard or seen on this show. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The host, guests, and producers of this show are not responsible for any adverse effects resulting from your use of or reliance on any information presented.
Andrea, can you hear us?
Many years ago, I died for 26 seconds. There are so many people in this world that have experienced life events that have led to their soul purpose. Wake Up Your Soul with Andrea will bring you these significant life events that demonstrate how to use those moments for guidance and life purpose. These are our stories. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Wake Up Your Soul with Andrea Lynn. Today's guest is here to talk to us about healing and holistic wellness, and she's also a best-selling author. So let's welcome Cristina Simmons. Welcome, Cristina.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. This is so fun.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Before we even start, we were just talking about the famous line of it's fine, everything's fine. Yep, I'm fine," and just talking about that because that is something I think everybody says that to themselves. I mean, we do it because 'cause we're trying to help ourselves, and then it's like, "Oh my gosh, no, it is not fine. Nothing is effing fine right now." So let's talk about your journey and how you kind of came to realizing, like, everything is not fine, and I've got some stuff to deal with.
Yeah, that's what we were sort of talking about, how I came up with the title of my book. It's called Eat Your Feelings because that's exactly what I was doing for like 20 years. I was just stuffing down all the things that were fine
Mhm.
with food instead of actually processing, like, all the trauma that I had been through in my life. And so we were talking a little bit about parents too. My dad was verbally abusive when we were kids. I have 2 sisters, older and younger, and then my mom. It wasn't just to me, it was our whole family, but it was kind of one of those things that we also didn't talk about outside the home because you didn't want anybody to know what was really going on. And so I sort of felt then like I was living 2 lives, and then that carried over into adulthood, and then you come into your early 20s where you're still kind of awkward, but my husband and I got married kinda young, 22 and 23, still babies. My twins are gonna be 22 in December, and I think there's no way they're ready to be married and be out on their own, so I don't know
Mhm.
what we were thinking, but here we are 27 years later and
Yeah.
still happily married, but we found out when we got pregnant with our first child that we carried a very rare gene that made very sick babies. It was a genetic syndrome, and it was the odds of us having a healthy baby were actually 75%. So
Okay.
odds of an unhealthy baby were only 25%. So in my optimistic mind, that was like, let's go, right? So our first daughter, she did live for 3 days, and then she passed away from complications from the syndrome, but
What was the syndrome?
it's called Ellis Van Creveld syndrome, and it's actually a dwarfism.
Oh,
So, she had very short limbs, 6 fingers and 6 toes. She had a fissure in her brain, so severe brain damage, a cleft
oh,
palate. But what actually caused her passing was it's a dwarfism, so all of her bone structure was small. Her rib cage was actually too small to allow her lungs to fully expand. So she just eventually just took her last breath. Yeah, but I was holding her when she took her last breath, was just something that I didn't think that I could do.
before she was born, did you know she was gonna be born with this condition?
We found out at 6 months pregnant, and
Okay.
so I actually had to stay pregnant for about a month and a half knowing that she was gonna pass away, and that was really hard.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that could make me cry. That's just oh my gosh, that is really, really hard.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
It just
sorry.
yeah, it was one of those things where I didn't wanna leave the house because people are nice, "How far along are you? And what are you having? And what" and it was
Yeah.
just kind of one of those things where I didn't want to have to talk to anybody about it. So I sort of stayed like a little recluse in the house for that time until my water broke, and
Yeah.
she did come on her own, but yeah, it was a little traumatic.
I can't even imagine. Yeah, I mean, that is such a good point that, yes, nobody knows what's growing inside of you and what's about to happen, and, oh my gosh, like, I cannot even imagine or put myself in your shoes because that is absolutely wild to have to deal with that, to walk out into the world looking like a normal pregnant mother, healthy, and it's not going to end in the most desired way, and nobody
Yeah, and I
else.
think we talk about in the entrepreneur world, the reticular activating system. When you're pregnant, like, all you see is pregnant people. There's pregnant women everywhere, there's newborns everywhere, it's just yeah, it was a lot
Yeah.
to deal with.
Yeah, also the red car theory, like, yeah, you ask people to
Exactly.
focus on something and that's all they see, but, yeah, I can't even imagine having to, like, deal with the people walking up to you and, "Oh, congratulations," and, "Oh, you must be so excited," and
Yeah.
oh gosh, well, what a learning opportunity that was. Okay, you lose that baby, and then what happens after that?
So we had a miscarriage shortly after, and then we had another baby girl the following year that was also sick with the syndrome. She passed away. But then we were blessed to adopt twin baby girls that were born on Christmas Day. So they were a whole miracle in themselves.
Yeah,
But they were born with cocaine in their system. So they did need a little bit of extra care. They were very tiny, 4'12" and 4'7",
okay.
and which I guess for twins was actually pretty good birth weight. But
Mhm.
their biological mother walked in off the street in labor on Christmas Day, and we got the call, and we were at the hospital within 2 or 3 days to hold them.
It's kind of beautiful though how that came full circle with you lost 2, but then you were able to really help 2 that really needed a mom that was gonna be there for them. And so then what happens after you have 2?
So then we had our girls, and of course, like I said, we went from no babies to 2 babies, and so that was kind of a whirlwind and just learning how to be a
Yeah.
mom, and they did have withdrawal symptoms, and so it was a lot. We ended up having a nanny for a little while, and that was so helpful, and I loved that the girls were at home and didn't have to be in daycare, so that was really a blessing to us.
Mhm.
And so it took me 4 years to convince my husband to even try again. Like, he he did I still had that prayer in my heart that we would have a
Yeah.
child of our own, and so we did try again about 4 years later, and the same thing happened, but it was a boy this time, but he also had the syndrome and
Mhm.
passed away.
Oh,
But, like, maybe a month after, I can't remember exact dates and times, but maybe a month after, my mom was at work and ended up talking to someone who had a it was like a brother-in-law or a sister-in-law, I don't know, it was his brother, sister's cousin, that kinda thing, that lived in Tennessee, and she worked with a girl who was 6 months pregnant and actively seeking someone to take her baby.
mm,
And so my mom, of course, called me right away, and I start talking to my husband, and he's like, "No, I don't wanna go through this again," it was just too much. And so I told him, I said, "Well, I'm gonna call her." I said, "And if it's a boy," I said, "then I think we'll know our answer." Well, I did call her. She was having a boy,
mm,
and so we ended up adopting him, and that was September of 2008. So my twin girls were born in December of '03, and then he was born in September of '08, so they were about 5 years apart.
okay.
Um, but we've always been very open about all the kids being adopted, and so the girls never thought anything different than he was their brother. We all went together to Tennessee. I'm from Florida.
Okay.
We all went, but I grew up in Tennessee. That was sort of the irony in that too. I
Mm,
grew up and then moved here.
mhm,
We all went together and met the biological mom, and the girls saw her with her tummy, and then they saw the brother come home, and so it
mhm.
really just was a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. They all needed us, and we needed them, and so
It's funny how it children so divinely happen because clearly these kids were very meant to come to you, and I had a similar thing happen with my own kids, so I never had any kids of my own. Well, they are my own, but I never had any through my body. We did surrogacy, but both surrogates just came to me. I wasn't even seeking them or asking for them. Our first one I had become friends with, but her mom and my mom are good friends. And her and I had been we had become friends because her daughter was ill, like I had been ill, and I had Lyme disease and all these things. And so I was asking questions at my appointments and trying to help her. And so some of the stuff that I had learned about myself was able to help her daughter. And so she called it a life for a life. She wanted to offer to give us a life because we had helped her. And she had just come to me and said, if you ever think that you want to do surrogacy, because she knew my health wasn't good, she said, I would be happy to do that for you. And so at the time, it was like, "Oh, okay, thank you. That's so sweet of you," but didn't even know we were gonna do that. And then I remember a night where my husband and I were like, "Okay, we should try to have a baby." And then I just got this gut feeling like I shouldn't do this. I should not. My body, I just knew I shouldn't. And so then we reached out to her, and then she did that for us. And then the second one was also a mom friend that I had actually just kind of met, and we were doing a homeschool situation thing, and it was a preschool thing. And she asked me if we were having more kids, and I told her that it was complicated and I don't know, and it's a whole thing. And then she messaged me a few days later and was like, ever since you told me your story, it's been on my heart to offer to have a baby for you. And so I told my husband, I was like, I know like we weren't going to do this right now. We weren't trying to do this right now, but I was like, "How often do you think this is gonna happen?" Like, people don't just come basically knocking on your door saying, "Can I give you a baby?" And so I felt like we had to do it. And then what's funny too is that the first one, she's a Sagittarius baby, just like me. And then the second one is a Leo baby, just like my husband. And it's wild though, because we didn't plan that at all. It was just divine timing. It was like, "Okay, I wanna have a baby, okay, go to the doctor, go through the process," and then whatever time it was, but I never even realized it till, like, after they were born. I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's wild. We got
That's
one of each."
beautiful. I didn't know that part of your story. I had listened to some of your podcasts before. I didn't know that part. That's really beautiful, and I had actually said this exact same thing to my husband, like, how often does somebody wanna give you a baby? Like, you c I
Yeah.
mean, and, people adopt all the time, but I have a lot of friends who have adopted through foster care, and they get a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old or a sibling set that are 6 and 8 or something like that. You rarely see anybody gets a baby, and we got 3 babies.
Well, yeah, when you were sharing your story, that's what kind of triggered me with my own story. I was like, "This sounds a lot like mine in that divine timing way," because I was thinking that too, like, it's not that easy to get a baby through adoption. It's really not, and it seems like you just kind of I don't wanna say fell into it, but it seems like it really did happen perfectly.
I always say that we're on God's adoption list.
Yeah.
How else to explain it?
Yeah. I love that. Okay, so you adopt the children, and then what happens next in your life?
So, our girls were just such a delight. I mean, they are just the sweet even now as adults, they're just the sweetest girls, and
Aw.
not that they didn't have their challenges, like, in school and all that kinda thing. Because with the cocaine, our one daughter did have some, short-term memory and reading and comprehension struggles, and so she always struggled in school, but and one had to have surgery on her throat. She had a cyst in her throat when she was 2, but other than that, always healthy, like, just the sweetest babies. And so when our son came along, we started to notice some differences between how he was developing and how the girls had developed.
Mm,
And just like even as a tiny baby, no facial expressions. We always kind of made fun of him because his bottom lip just sort of always just sort of hung down real low. And like he didn't coo and smile back at you like most babies did. And I didn't think about it a lot at that point, but it was kind of in the back of my mind. And then when he was about 1.5, he started having a lot of sensory issues, played differently than the girls did. He didn't get along with other kids. He always wanted to be by himself. All of the typical where I'm going with this is he was, diagnosed on the autism spectrum, but all the typical sort of lining things up in a row, color coding everything. We had so many problems with clothing. He wouldn't wear shoes and socks. He wouldn't wear a jacket. Like, it was just all these different things, textures, foods. He was a really hard eater. And so at the age of 4, after he had gotten kicked out of almost every daycare we'd ever had him in, and then they were trying to kick him out of pre-K, we finally took him and had him diagnosed, and he was on the autism spectrum.
okay.
And so one of the first things that they said that he could benefit from was occupational therapy.
Mhm.
I didn't even have any idea at that time what occupational therapy was. I knew physical therapy, but I didn't know what occupational therapy was. So I started to research it and trying to find somebody to in our area. We live kind of in a rural area, so we're an hour from Orlando, an hour from Tampa, like an hour from any major city. And then I still had these two, young girls in elementary, and we're trying to work full time, and I just couldn't get him anywhere. Nobody would come to the house. And so I thought it would be a fantastic idea with twin girls and a son with special needs to go back to school at the age of 39 and get my master's degree in occupational therapy. My husband thought I was nuts. He's like, "How are we gonna do this? When are we gonna do this?" And
Yeah.
I said, "But I need to know how his brain works. I need to better understand what he's feeling so that I can help him." I said, "We're all going nuts here." He was running the entire household with the tantrums and the food issues and not being able to keep him in school. Anyway, that's what I did. Went back and got my master's degree in in occupational therapy, and so now one of my hats is pediatric occupational therapist on top of all the other things, so
I mean, I get it. I did brain rewire certification just kind of for myself. And I was like, well, if I can help people with it too, that's fine. But I was just curious about it. And I don't know. I like to learn new things, I guess. So I
me
just
too.
dove into that. So, okay. All right. So then after you got the certification, did you feel like you were able to help him better?
Yes, for sure, and it still took a while for, like, my husband to truly understand. We had a lot of fights along the way because my husband's very caring and he's actually very laid back, but when it comes to kids, I mean, we came from the era of you did what your parents told you to do. If they said, "Sit down and be quiet," you sat down and were quiet, and that's just not how my son works. You have to approach him in a completely different manner, a completely different way. You have to use different words when you speak to him for him to understand, and
Yeah.
so it took a long time, and we tried to homeschool, we tried private school, we ended up putting him in an autism school for 4 years.
Okay.
It was really good for him, but he's very smart, he's high functioning, so he's
Okay.
very, very smart, and they weren't giving him I didn't feel like they were giving him the academics to truly challenge him. So last year, when he was a sophomore in high school, I took him out of the autism school and put him in public high school, which was terrifying.
Yeah.
Put him into public high school, but he's doing really, really well. I mean,
Mhm.
just yeah, I'm so proud of him and proud of us as a family too, because it's been all of us, including his sisters,
Mhm.
helping with him and being patient with him, and
Yeah.
it is possible.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad he's doing well because I mean, I think it's scary to go to high school for anybody on the
Exactly.
yeah, on the spectrum or not. When you're talking about just the language with kids and they need to hear it in a certain way, it's really not just I mean, your mother, it's not just autistic children. It's every child. Like every child is I don't know, they've taken certain things in a certain way, and they need to be spoken to a certain way, and that's one of the biggest things I think parents have to realize is every kid is so unique and so special, and I know you were saying you listened to the other episode I did, rebranding autism and how he talks about, really meeting kids where they're at and what are their unique abilities and helping them in that way. And I think that's so important that we do that as parents because I mean, my kids, I would not say they're on the spectrum, but like some of the things you talk about, like I deal with that too. Like my kids, they're weird with socks, but guess what? I was super weird with socks. I was really weird with socks as a kid.
The
So
stalks. I wanted to, like, literally stick a fork in my eye with the stalks. It's still like, when somebody says socks, I can still be kinda like, "Oh gosh," because my son, it was terrible, we could not find socks for him, and
did you
it
ever
was
find socks? Because 'Cause I've been looking for socks and I'm like, "I'm about to give up. Just go
well,
barefoot."
we finally found Jeffrey socks on
Like
Amazon.
okay,
They are seamless, so they don't have any of those
okay.
little tiny that you can't feel the seam on the inside, and there's none of those
Yeah,
little tiny, like, I don't even know what you call it,
knot,
like hair
knot.
on the yeah, on the inside of the socks, and so we had to buy Jeffrey socks for years because
Okay.
that was the only socks he would wear. It was a constant battle, I'd put the socks
Yeah.
on socks and shoes on in the morning, and you're in a rush to get to school and all the things,
Mhm.
and I'd put him in the car seat, and 2 minutes down the road, and he would have his socks and shoes off.
Well, I'm glad you made it 2 minutes down the road. We can't even get out the door 'cause it's like, my sock, it doesn't feel right. My sock is bugging me, mom. It's my sock." And I'm like, "Oh my god, but hold on, let me order some Jeffrey socks right now."
Jeffrey socks, yes.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
That's
no, I know. And my oldest, she's still the same way, but she does not wear jackets. I don't She's never said it's a sensory thing. I don't know. She just doesn't like to wear jackets. And we just got a new au pair, and she's like, Are your kids ever cold?" I'm like, "I don't really know. I just know they will not wear a jacket. I buy them because I'm trying to be a good mom, but they do not wear them. I don't know." My oldest, I think she was about 4, and I have pictures of her outside in the snow in a swimsuit and her little frozen sparkly boots. They
I
were
love
not even snow boots, they're little high heel frozen boots and a bikini.
awesome. I love it.
Just you gotta I don't know, I give up sometimes.
It's interesting because when there are sensory challenges, I often say that sometimes it's like their wires are crossed. So I know, like, my son, he does not get cold very often, and you will see him and then we live in Florida, mind you, so it doesn't get cold here often, but
Yeah.
when it's cold, he will go to school in shorts and a t-shirt, and I always say, "Well, at least take this jacket with you so people don't think I'm a terrible parent."
I know.
Put it in your backpack or whatever, but at least you'll have it. But it's like he feels cold and hot differently.
Yeah.
And also with touch, like, for years, we couldn't cut his hair because it just
Mm.
that light touch
Oh, okay.
bothered him. If you barely touched up against his skin, he would, like, try to wipe it off and
Yeah.
say that it hurt, but if you, like, smacked him on the back, he thought that felt good. He
Yeah.
loves roller coasters
Mm.
because it's like that G-force, like that really,
Yeah.
hard pressure, that's calming to him.
Oh, wow.
So, like, complete opposite of what, like, neurotypical, would be.
Yeah. I mean, that reminds me, we went to this one, I think he's like, I don't even know what he was, chiropractor something or other, I don't know what he was. He was like a neuro something though. But anyway, he told us to take one of our kids and hold them by the ankles and swing them upside down to, like, help them regulate, but honestly, it didn't seem like it calmed her down at all. She just got more excited and thought this was so fun, like, "Let's do this every night," and I was like, "I'm gonna pop her ankles out of the socket. I'm not doing this," but
You have to find what works for that kid, just like you said, every kid, like, the way that you speak to them, they're totally different. He
yeah.
loved to be wrapped up. We used to call him a Judson burrito. I would wrap him up really tight in a yoga mat
Mhm.
and just, like, arms, everything, like, stuck down to his side, and that was calming to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the compression is calming for a lot of kids, but so we bought one of those swings, I think they kind of
Mhm.
call it a sensory type swing where it's like just a piece of fabric and they go inside like a little cocoon. Yeah, that didn't calm either of my children.
Mm.
Yeah, no, they have the time of their life. I mean, they're like swinging from the chandeliers and that thing. I like they just across the room and they're never calm about it. Like they think it's so fun. And yeah, I mean, they can hit their head on the wall and still keep going because it's just a blast in there, but it's yeah. So I don't know, but yeah, I'm sure parents are gonna listen to this and be like, "Okay, yeah, my kid is normal." And even for your child, you might think some of these things are very like autism, but I don't even know, or we're all just a little on the spectrum, who knows? But it
Well,
also
I learned from going back to school to get my master's and then working with my son, I learned that I'm very sensory. And
yeah,
just I think a lot of that is from the trauma. Like I had a lot of chronic pain through my adult life. But like I love to lift heavy weights
mm,
because that is calming to my nervous system.
okay,
So just things like that, things that I learned. And that another part of me writing the book was I started to realize that I was going to the pantry when I was having certain feelings.
mhm,
And so like if I'm anxious, I want something crunchy because it gives me that sensory input in my mouth that I'm looking for. But if I'm sad, I want like a pudding substance or a cake, something that's, more moist or something like I mean, it was just I started to really put together the sensory component with the way that I was feeling.
yeah.
So that was sorta another thing that came about when I started writing the book.
Yeah, we talked about that, like, when I was doing the brain rewire certification and recognizing when you're going to the pantry and you're grabbing something, what are you grabbing and what are you feeling at that moment? So if you're grabbing, like you said, if it's crunchy or if it's sweet, what are the emotions right now that you're feeling? So then you can kind of start to correlate the two and understand that, oh, I'm grabbing something sweet. I must be this or I must be that, right? And then you can kind of start to deal with your emotions, but it's really interesting. I mean, my kids snack all day. I don't think it's emotional for them necessarily, but yeah, for adults, for sure. So that's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then along the way, the part that I left out about my story, when right before I was supposed to start school for occupational therapy, I've had this knee that I've had surgery on twice because I played a lot of sports when I was younger. I ran track and played soccer. And so I had surgery on this knee like when I was in high school. And it has always bothered me ever since then. And so I was getting ready to go to school, and I knew that we were gonna have to transfer patients, and I thought, "I need to go get a cortisone shot in this knee because I don't want that to be messing me up while I'm in school with all the other things I got going on."
Yeah.
So, I go to the ortho and tell him that I want a cortisone shot, and he does an X-ray, standard thing. And he says, "So," he's like, "Your knee looks fine." He's like, "I don't even wanna talk about that." And he's pointing to the X-ray and he says, "But you see this stuff right here?" And he's pointing to the lower part of my femur bone that was in the X-ray. He said, "Do you see this little white stuff?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, that's not supposed to be there."
Mm.
And I said, "Oh, well, I'm not here for you to find new stuff, doc. Like, I just
Yeah.
I just wanted you to shoot my knee and let me go on my way." Well, that turned into him referring me to a orthopedic specialist in Orlando, and I ended up having a tumor, essentially a tumor growing from the inside of my femur bone. And
Oh,
so when we went to that ortho, he said, "You need to get off of this leg immediately." He's like, "I need you immediately on crutches, no weight bearing." They were afraid that the bone could break, and then they weren't sure at that point, like, what was inside there, and they didn't know if it was gonna spread. And they thought that it was chondrosarcoma, which is bone cancer. They ended up not knowing what it was, just that it was foreign substance, and so I ended up having had a bone biopsy, and then I had a major surgery, and so where they cut a very large hole in my bone, took out all that yucky stuff, filled it with some sort of synthetic, and so now I have a plate and 7 screws
oh my
in my
god.
leg that has to stay in there. So, I ended up starting occupational therapy school on a cane because I had to go like, I had to delay me starting, and then I was on a walker and then on a cane for weeks on weeks and lots of rehabilitation and all that kinda thing, so
That
that
sounds really painful, like, really, really painful.
it was very painful. Bone pain is a whole different pain,
Uh-huh.
anything else, and I know you've been through a lot of
Yeah.
physical and physical things, yeah, but that bone pain, I mean, it just nothing touches it. It doesn't matter what kind of opioid or Tylenol, ibuprofen, like, it doesn't even matter, it just hurts.
Yeah, I would've been like, "Put me in a coma, wake me up when it's over."
Yeah, there was lots of tears, but it's like with anything else, I knew that it was temporary pain and that I was gonna be stronger on the other side,
Mhm,
and that's I mean, that's exactly what happened. I came to be very grateful that I get to work out, I get to move my body. I was facing amputation of that leg at one point. He said, "Usually when I see scans like this," he said, "it's amputation."
mhm.
So I feel
Well,
very fortunate to still have my leg, and I have to modify a lot of things,
yeah,
obviously, when I work out, but I still pretty much do whatever I wanna do, so
yeah. I mean, you seem like the person that would do whatever you wanna do. Find a
I've
way.
yeah, if I set my mind to it, it's probably happening.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so then what happened next, or what was the next big thing in your life that made you kind of recognize that, okay, like, there's a lot of crap here that I gotta deal with?
So, it was actually my husband at one point in our marriage was unfaithful,
Okay.
and that was really the turning point that made me go inward and to really look at, like, I was not upholding my end of the bargain in our marriage, you know what I mean? Like, I had become at that point, when we were married, I was very anxious, I was very depressed, I had gained a lot of weight, and I didn't love myself, and
Yeah.
so really had to find that relationship with me. I had to become more self-aware. I realized I couldn't even look myself in the mirror. I was just very uncomfortable in my own skin. And so I started really working on that. And then we were able to repair our marriage. We'll be married 27 years in February, and we've never been happier. But that was really my journey of sort of self-discovery and figuring out that if you don't love yourself, you can't love everybody else the way they need to be loved.
Right. Okay. So that was the big wake up call. And then you looked back on all these other things that had been happening in your life and kind of realized how much you just didn't have a lot of self love and it was probably causing a lot of illness within the body, it sounds like. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I had chronic pain for I mean, I still have some chronic pain, and I have pain in that leg too, like, when the weather changes, I can
Mhm.
usually tell when it's gonna rain. It's kind of a joke, my
Yeah.
husband's like, "Does your leg hurt? Is it gonna rain today?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "I don't know,"
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I think a lot of my chronic pain and all my illnesses I had a lot of gut issues
Mhm.
along the years,
Mhm.
completely destroyed my gut. Obviously, eating my feelings didn't help that either, but it's
Oh.
that gut-brain barrier that everybody talks about, and
Mhm.
I just wasn't taking care of myself.
Yeah.
So
So all this stuff happens and then you decide you're going to write a book. Is that how that went down?
so, I I've always had a lot of trouble with relationships and
Okay.
friendships and circles of friends and all that kinda thing, and so I was having a little bit of trouble with that because I had all these dreams and aspirations, and a lot of the people in my immediate circle, like, I thought there was something wrong with me. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't supposed to wanting to do more or to do all these things, and so I started sort of praying for other women, that look to aspire to these bigger things, and so, of course, I was on Instagram. No, actually, I listened to Ed Mylett,
Okay.
and I heard Amberly Lago on his podcast, and so I sort of became a little bit obsessed with Amberly and started to stalk all of her social media,
Uh-huh.
and she put out that she was inviting ladies into her mastermind.
Okay.
And so I didn't even know what a mastermind was, first of all, and
Yeah.
I thought it sounds really fancy, like, I don't think I can afford that, she's famous, like, she's not even gonna want me in her mastermind, whatever that is, and so anyway, I just pushed the button and put in the application. She emailed me right away, and we set up a call, and then she missed my call,
Oh
which was
no.
which, I mean, life happens. She had a friend come in from out of town unexpectedly, and, like, she had me in her paper calendar, but not her electronic, and
Okay.
so just, we're
Yeah.
human.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love that she has paper calendar because I do that too. I can put a lot of notes in there and I write things down about whatever episode I'm filming and all kinds of stuff. So I still use paper. I had a call with somebody within our circle ish, and he was like, "Are you writing this down?" I said, "Yes." He's like, "I have never seen that." I'm like, "Well, how old are you? Like, how have you not seen this?"
Right.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, I love a paper calendar. So anyway, we ended up connecting and she invited me into the mastermind. And so that the reason I think another reason I was drawn to her is because she's written 2 books and she speaks. And so that was sort of what I was aspiring to do. And so I just used her faith in me and her belief in me before I had my own
Okay.
and wrote and published my book and speaking on stages and doing podcasts. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, if I can do it, you can do it.
Sounds like it. Well, I mean, you sound like a strong person. I get that a lot too, that where people tell me, like, but I've never been as strong as you, or like, but I've not always been this person. And I mean, we all struggle with things and feelings. And something I was thinking about with myself, I've never shared this before with anybody actually, but I was thinking about this last night. And I think everybody has something that they think about themselves that they think that maybe nobody else knows or sees. And something I've always felt was a little bit, I don't know how to explain it. It's almost like out of my own body where I've always felt like such I don't wanna say it. No, I shouldn't even say it. It sounds so bad, but I've always felt like I don't, like, match my feelings inside. Like, I feel like such a dork, like, such a dorky person, and then on the outside, I feel like I don't necessarily look that way, so then it doesn't all match and make sense, but
Kinda like a disassociation.
a little
I
bit.
felt very disassociated for a long time. I explained it as almost like I was watching myself from the outside, and I was
Yeah,
2 totally different people. I
yeah,
totally understand what you're saying,
yeah,
and I figured out that a lot of that was, like, inner child work. I
yeah,
always felt like I was an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old, like I sorta got stuck in those time periods, and so if somebody said something to me that was meant to be, helpful, I would take it as criticism and,
mhm,
internalize it, and so, yeah, I think we all
yeah,
have those feelings.
yeah. Anyway, okay, so you join the mastermind, you get motivated, and you write your book. What's in this book? I mean, I know obviously people need to buy the book, but what can people expect to gain from buying the book?
So it's a self-help memoir. Obviously, I go into more detail and into all of our story but there's also tools in there. I have several acronyms that I use so that people can do the self-work on themselves to around food. There's several of them in there. There's one that is calm that I actually developed because of my son, but it helps adults to calm just stands for chunk, adapt, list, and movement. So it's sort of those things that autistic kids need. They need to do things in little chunks, so break up their activities so they don't get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And then adapt is to adapt the environment or adapt whatever it is they're doing so that it doesn't overwhelm their sensory system. And my son needs lots of lists. You can't just give him 3 or 4 things verbally to do. He can't compartmentalize that. So we write a lot of things down, which I think as adults, that's the same thing. Like, I need a
Yeah.
list. I know
Yeah. Yeah.
what I'm doing.
Yeah. I mean,
To
this is
incorporate
something.
movement into every day.
Well, this was something I loved about the episode I did, the autism episode. I'm like, this stuff is great just for a regular functioning adult. Like everybody, whether you're neurotypical or not, I mean, everybody needs a little bit of a way to get like structured and organized and understanding themselves because like we're talking about kids and even adults, we all function differently. We all don't operate in the same way. And so like I like a paper calendar. I think I need a paper calendar, you know?
Me
Everybody
too.
has yeah, everybody has different needs for how they're gonna be successful, so I think it's really important to not box yourself in either and think that you have to do it exactly how somebody else is doing it.
Yeah. And then from that too, I also started my own publishing company.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so because, stories like mine and yours and a lot of other people that you've had on your podcast, like, they're kinda heavy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They can be kinda heavy, and so when I was writing my story, it was very healing. But I loved my publisher. I absolutely love my publisher, but there was a lot of disconnect there. You know what I mean? So I wanted to bring my therapy side in with my literary side and help other people to write and publish their stories,
Mhm.
but heal through that process. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. Oh, that's awesome, yeah. I've been working on my book, but not as much as I should, so I need to get back with it, but and it's true though, it's heavy and like you were when you were talking, I'm thinking about just the writing process itself is very healing for the person writing it because you have to really stop and think and reflect to put it down, from thought to paper, computer, or whatever it is. So it's a great process for people to go through. I feel like everybody should write their own memoir of some sort just to kind of process through all the things that you've lived through.
At least journal.
Yeah, at least something. So, eat your feelings. Do you talk in there about how you can stop eating your feelings?
Yes, I actually have an acronym around that too, and it's just really to give pause,
Okay.
like you were talking about earlier on why you are eating what you're eating and what it's really trying to cover up, and then you can redirect. Are you just thirsty or are you bored or are you sad or angry? Like, what is it? And then try to redirect that emotion into
Yeah.
something more positive. And like a lot of times I just, sometimes maybe I need a coffee or maybe I'll go outside and for a walk. I need to take a break. I need to listen to some music, whatever it is. But you got to redirect yourself from the food because that's the unhealthy
Yeah.
option. So
We're in such a busy, busy world, and everybody keeps themselves busy. This was something we were talking about on my last episode I was filming, but we're talking about how everybody is just constantly filling their days with so many things. But yes, like we were saying before, when you go to reach for whatever it is in the pantry, why are you reaching for that? And then work through that emotion, journal it, figure out why did I do that and what can I do differently now instead. And once you work through those emotions, you'll stop reaching for those things as much. But it's definitely giving yourself that pause, that reflection, and also the discovery of why you're doing what you're doing and eating what you're eating.
I think it comes down to self awareness. And that's a lot of
Mhm.
what I talk about is just being more self aware. Um,
Which comes with time. People just
yes.
don't give themselves the time. I think that's the biggest problem is people are not giving themselves the time to process through emotions and reflect. It's any downtime that people have how many people are sitting and journaling or just staring off into space and thinking and processing. It's like, oh, I got a down moment here. I'm gonna go on Instagram. I'm gonna turn on TV. They're gonna do something instead of just sit in the stillness of life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
And
hard. It's
Mhm.
noisy in my head.
Yeah. It's very noisy. Yes, it can be very noisy. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. Is there anything else you want to share with the listeners where they can find you or anything else?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. We were connected sort of through a mutual friend,
Yeah.
so I think
Oh,
that's one thing I love about podcasting is just making the connections. I am all over Instagram. That's Christina P. Simmons. My website is ChristinaPSimmons.com, and I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever. I have a YouTube. I need to get better about being on YouTube more, but all things in due time.
yeah.
So
And then your book, where can people buy your book? Just Amazon?
Amazon, but it's on Barnes& and Noble, Walmart.com. I mean, you can find it anywhere.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
Thank you.